This lesson is devoted to the whole question you see posed on the screen. What exactly is the point of socialization? What are the consequences of socialization? Now bear in mind, and I borrowed this from Dr. Simmons at the University of Northampton. He does a really good job of highlighting how complex this process really is. Notice again that some of them may be what's almost called natural, just basic things we're all supposed to acquire. Some's going to be carefully planned. On the other hand, some can be positive, some can be negative. And through this process, and it can take place between individuals or within the context of groups, we learn a whole lot, such as gender expectations. Likewise, again, how we're supposed to behave as part of our ethnic category. Some of it's going to take place early in life. Some of it, again, comes later in life. Some of it's anticipatory in nature, something we'll talk about in much more detail a little bit later on. And there are a variety of different agencies that figure into the process as well. So it is extraordinarily elaborate. Now, in your study guide, over on the 7th page and also at the top of the 8th page, highlighted are some of the basic or key consequences of socialization. You want to remember that through this process, you and I develop a real sense of who we are. Our capacity to think of ourselves as a unique individual comes through this process. Once again, selfhood or self-awareness, illustrated by the fact that we start addressing ourselves as I and me. And apparently this is something we're not born with, but we acquire through interaction with others. And the process of developing this sense of who we are, one of the key processes is role taking. We literally perceive ourselves, we view ourselves, we try to see ourselves from the perspective of other people. We try to become other people and then turn right around and look at ourselves. We'll elaborate on this in more detail a little bit later on. As we talked about earlier, it's through this process of socialization that a degree of social order is established because we acquire insights into what's acceptable, what's expected. On the other hand, if you go over to the next page at the top, it's through this process that you and I acquire culture. Now, don't underestimate an important fact. We contribute, okay, but we initially learn our culture through this overall process of socialization. And if you will also note, highlight, and bear in mind, socialization, again, works in a variety of different ways. Good example is selective exposure. Can you provide some illustrations of very early in your life where you were selectively exposed? And who did it? I'm guessing that right off a lot of you, well, I remember my parents told me I couldn't watch certain shows on television. That's selective exposure. Or the fact if you were a male, maybe you got male-oriented toys. If you were a female, you got female-oriented toys. That's all selective exposure. Now, don't assume, and it's very important you remember this, that this is only done by parents. You want to bear in mind that peers, workmates, other family members, authority figures, etc., even the media presentations as part of our particular society or one's particular society can selectively expose. Have you ever been told by a friend, why in the world would you want to go out with him? He's a jerk. Well, once again, that's selective exposure. You got that? Modeling, on the other hand, notice exactly what's involved here. First and foremost, we observe people we hold in high esteem. Then because we hold them in such high esteem, we try to imitate them. And eventually, this behavior, we repeat it so frequently, it just becomes, as is noted here, a matter of habit. But it's very, 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 very important that you remember that what agents of socialization say and do, what they say and what they do, isn't always the same. You ever remember, maybe, like me, from the standpoint of my very early formative years, I was informed by both of my parents to watch my language, not to use obscene words. Yet, again, when my father got angry, guess what he did? He used obscene words. We might be taught we're supposed to be kind and considerate to everybody, but then you find that the agent of socialization, a big brother, someone you hold in high esteem, just unloads on another person. And we're sitting there scratching our head, what's going on? Now, rewards and punishments are brought into play. Key thing to remember about rewards and punishments, they're not always in your face and obvious. Sometimes the most valued rewards are those that are most subtle. A pleasing look, a wink, a pat on the back. On the other hand, how many of you remember those subtle punishments? My mother had a habit of snapping her fingers and pointing toward me and then looking over the bridge of her nose. And I knew I was in serious trouble there. Nurturance and identification. I really hope that to a great extent is self-explanatory. You want to remember that identification implies positive feelings toward the person that the child wants to be like. You hold this person in such high esteem, again, that you want to be like them if you wish. And if you've got that going, that can be, again, a potent process involved. Now, you want to remember, too, that socialization is not a direct, shall I say, process of teaching. It's more complex than that. A great deal of socialization is, and I'm overusing the word, but it applies, it's subtle. So don't go into the thinking that socialization only involves direct and formal teaching. On the other hand, remember, a lot of it is pervasive. In other words, what we learn just creeps into everything that we do as such. And we may not even think we're being socialized, but in effect we are. Also, remember that diagram of Dr. Simmons. There are a lot of agencies that are involved in socializing us other than just parents and close friends. And we all possess certain, shall I say, natural endowments that may affect and interact with the socialization process. It might be a particular inherent trait that we have that provides us real benefits in school, in interacting with friends, etc. Now, socialization can have a lot of implications. This is an example right here. It can have dire consequences. On the other hand, I found myself sometimes agreeing with Calvin. You with me on this point? A lot of socialization involves us growing up, becoming an established part of our society as such. Now, over the next few lessons, we're going to examine some of the major agencies of socialization. So, see you then.